Ladies and gentlemen and our viewers, we are starting our podcast with a conversation with Dr. Nancy Allen. She is Associate Director, International Program at University of California, and she is Executive Director of Global Fellowship in Agriculture Development at the same university. She is working with Pakistan since many years, and she has been working in collaboration with the University of Agriculture Faisalabad, and she has done some wonderful work. So we are bringing a nice talk with her for your information, and this is also part of our policy advocacy work in Pakistan, and we hope to have a nice conversation, insightful conversation with her. And thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Nancy, here in Pakistan. Please tell us something about your work in Pakistan and what is the scale and scope of your engagement here with the university and the government of Punjab.
Okay. Well, so it's about exactly 10 years ago to the day that I came to Pakistan for the first time professionally, and it was to establish the Center for Advanced Studies in Agriculture and Food Security in collaboration with the University of Agriculture Faisalabad. And probably the most impactful piece of that work was that about 60 Pakistani came to the University of California, Davis, which is the world's leading agricultural university, for periods of 3 to 6 months, either research or curriculum development, a mix of faculty and graduate students. And I am absolutely thrilled, more than thrilled, joyful to say that on the return to UAF last week, that we're seeing the fruition of that work. You know, impact doesn't happen in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. It happens, over longer periods. And in this case, at 10 years, thrilled to see really important work. One of them was a faculty member named Nadeem Akbar, who has patented a bedding machine to raise the beds for rice planting. It's a water-saving technique, and as many of you may know, rice is one of the great contributors to methane emissions and warming of our planet. So he spent 6 months at UC Davis learning about water-saving techniques. Has come back, designed a planter. And if I, could send you pictures, the rice looks beautiful. And of course, it's enormously labor saving as well, because there's no need to transplant rice, the raised beds. And actually, I've missed the major word, direct sowing of the rice on the raised beds. Less water, less labor cost. And so that one was just wonderful. 2 other projects were, I went to visit fellow named Qamar Shakil, who is currently the director of the at RE, and he's the head of ABRI, the Agricultural Biotechnology Research Institute within that group. And he came to Davis 2 or 3 times, eventually brought U.S. germplasm for alfalfa back, and is now about to release the new varieties of alfalfa. Alfalfa is, for those who aren't as familiar, high protein fodder for animals. So it would, improve milk yields, which in turn, a little bit like rice, another big contributor to methane emissions. As milk yield goes up, the methane emission intensity goes down. And a fellow named Rana Mohammed Atif, who came to work at the Chickpea Innovation Lab at UC Davis and has developed a new variety that is one also. It was just a joy to see that work. An academic, I could talk to you a long time about why those were successful, others not so successful. And the thread in that is relationships. So often, each of those people developed a close relationship with somebody at UC Davis. I can name them. I mean, Nadeem Akbar, Bruce Lindquist, Rana Atif, Doug Cook, Qamar Shakil, Dan Putnam, Timothy Blank. And that's what's beautiful about this kind of scientific collaboration that is, I hope, will benefit the world, but I think in the mission of your institute, benefit, human exchange and so on. It is so important.
This is wonderful. Actually, what we see that in less developed economies actually require this kind of not only technology transfer but also transfer of technical knowledge to help countries like Pakistan to have better human capital and better human resources to employ in different techniques of production. And this is very interesting that your university is helping one of the university's leading institutes, research institutes in Pakistan, in developing such techniques which are they use less factors of production like water and other resources, and they're more efficient and they're environment friendly as well. So I think this can be a very good intervention for the overall economy of the province and of the country too. My question is that do you see that your research collaboration is actually being taken in the practical, there is an uptake of this technological knowledge at the field level, in the practical?
It is, you ask an extremely important question. And I should say that technology adoption is tricky, but one of the things that we worked on quite a bit with the Center for Advanced Studies in Agriculture and Food Security was thinking towards that outreach and technology adoption level, and I would say that institute is very minded that way compared to others. Again, the visit to University of California, the U.S. has this thing called land grant universities, which is in every state. At one point early, 150 years ago, these universities were established precisely to create a linkage with farmers. So these people that I named on the U.S. side are all what are called extension specialists. That having been said, I want to come back in 2 years to answer your question more fully, because the alfalfa I talked about and the chickpeas, those new seed varieties have just passed the national trials very successfully. But the next step will be the adoption by farmers to see how, where it's being planted and so on. I think the rice, the direct sowing of rice, I understand, has spread. The technology is being adopted, and that will be my next, I'll start asking more questions about that. So you ask, the eternally important question, but it's very important for me to add here in that, while, you're hearing me talk about University of California, Davis, the successes of this are credited largely to the leadership at University of Agriculture Faisalabad. That when these people returned from California, they were facilitated by the university, supported in this work with an orientation towards technology influence. And, for instance, I came this time specifically in support of a development establishing a national plant diagnostic network. Has a strong outreach orientation from the get-go. It's about farmers.
Actually, your talk makes me recall Pakistan's a history of contact with U.S. Institutes on this kind of collaboration. Back in late 50s and 60s, we had this village development program in Pakistan, and at that time, I think Ford Group and the University of Chicago, we had a lot of technical expertise coming from the US and helping Pakistani growers, farmers to learn new Mexican varieties, high-yielding varieties, and it helped solve Pakistan's food security problems. Otherwise, before that, we used to have shortages of different food commodities in Pakistan, and those Mexican varieties and green revolution technologies, and it was very interesting that it was not only the technology or the technical expertise which was being shared with Pakistan, but also this extension program. So we had US technical expertise and financial expertise, financial assistance, and then Pakistan's research institutes and government doing extension work too. So that model was beautiful, and I think you're also working somehow on the same model.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fascinating history, and I don't know it in Pakistan so well. I think, some of the Green Revolution story that's better known is actually India, typically. The thing about agriculture, it's not stagnant, and so you introduce varieties that over time, have either succumbed to other diseases or, so on. And likewise, institutions that, they have a lot of energy when they're first established. I think that the University of Agriculture Faisalabad was invigorated right around that same time. Washington State University came to do some capacity. I like the word capacity mobilization, not capacity strengthening, because there's a huge amount of capacity here in Pakistan. So to some extent, the Center for Advanced Studies, it was funded originally by USAID when I came 10 years ago, was a little bit in that model at the university level.
What I could understand from your talk is that now you are looking at agriculture in a more comprehensive way. We have moved forward from the early phase of Green Revolution technologies, and now we are talking about food systems, and we are talking about sustainable food systems.
Yes.
And when we talk about sustainable food systems, somehow we also talk about One Health, that environment and the animal health and human health, these work together in a complex way. Can you please shed some light that how you incorporate these concepts in your work?
Yeah, well, One Health is a global movement to work at the disciplinary lines of agriculture, veterinary, environmental. The notion being that they all come together to create human and planetary health. And I think most people most quickly understand One Health around zoonotic disease, that is, disease that passes from from animals to humans. COVID brought attention to some of that, Ebola, those diseases. So I think some of the greater advances in the One Health concept have come in that arena. Back to University of California, Davis, not under my college's purview, but the School of Veterinary Medicine has had enormous involvement in that topic, and it's created various One Health university networks, like a Southeast Asian one, an African one, and I'm certainly going to go back now and talk to the head of that unit at our veterinary school, a woman named Valtrina Smith, about bringing Pakistan into this network. Now, Pakistan has been working on One Health at the Center for Advanced Studies in Agriculture and Food Security at Faisalabad. One of the labs is dedicated to One Health. I don't really, to be honest, don't know, where it's going, other than there's been, advocacy around the concept, and it's certainly an important. The gentleman at Faisalabad, who is in charge of, is spearheading the One Health group, is a gentleman, Professor Muhammad Arshad, who's also head of, I think he's a veterinarian by training, I believe, and I think he's the dean of the new School of Pharmacy, because it's, there's vaccines and other things, animals, so very important concept. Also a difficult concept, working across disciplines is a challenge everywhere in the world. But, recognition that human health is not independent of environmental health. It's not independent of animal health. That there's, and all of these things, of course. You mentioned climate change earlier, exacerbated by climate change. I mean, again, I came to Pakistan this time at Faisalabad around plant disease issues. climate change is speeding up the interaction between pathogens and the host, between plants and pests and so on. So I think One Health also gets impetus from the urgency that climate change is introducing into these interactions across environment, human and animals.
In Pakistan, we are facing, or at least we have tried to prioritize two aspects of food safety in our policy frameworks and some of the interventions which government is doing, and particularly in collaboration with international players. One is to control antimicrobial resistance in Pakistan, which is emerging a big challenge around the world and also in Pakistan, that now people have to take second, third generation antibiotics to treat very basic kind of infections. One of the sources, which I can understand from your talk, we were having discussion previously too, that one source of antimicrobial resistance is coming from the food systems, that we eat food which already has a lot of quantity of antimicrobials, and it is affecting our health too. So did you have a chance to look at?
Obviously antimicrobial resistance is a global issue that a lot of people are doing research on. And as far as the food systems, antimicrobial resistance probably enters more through milk supply, which is the use of and I should say that meat as well, certainly chickens and so on, where they're using large amounts of vaccines. But I think some of the advocacy about use of antibiotics in humans has a communications path to medical doctors who can be well informed. I think on the animal side, there may be some bigger challenge convincing, say, poultry industry and so on, and that's where you get some interest more in sort of organic foods or chickens. I don't know in Pakistan what you call them. I've worked in Egypt a lot, and there's the village chicken is highly prized at this point, because even though it's skinny and scrawny compared to those big fryers, but that it's driven by taste, but also some people's concern about that. But I think you were also alluding to a different issue, which is the pesticide residues in the food system, which is somewhat separate, but also a major concern, is that pesticides, fungicides, herbicides are all used, both probably excessively but indiscriminately, and that gets into the food system in ways that are not always being managed. At the export level, of course, there's attempt to control it through what's called phytosanitary standards, that you can't export it, especially Europe probably has it's called MRL, minimum residue level, the highest standards around minimum residue levels. But very typically, and I don't again speak so much to Pakistan, but on behalf of UC Davis, I've worked in Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, many countries. I think in civil society, there is some frustration and anger sometimes that the government pays attention to pesticide residue levels for exports, but doesn't bring that knowledge back to the food supply system nationally. I'm an organizational sociologist by training, so I care a lot about these whole complex systems. But as you know, that comes back to all the hard work you're doing with institutions and capacity strengthening here. It's a little bit outside the realm of what University of California, I'm in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, pays attention to. There are other universities that have more direct development activity than our institute.
Dr. Z, thank you very much. My last question is that what is your experience and how you see that global best practices can be brought in Pakistan about food safety and to have safe food available in Pakistan so that we do not have biological contaminations and toxicological contaminations or a lot of allergens in it. So what are the global best practices of?
Well, a lot of people talk about, I mean, again, I'm not so involved with the best practices in agriculture sort of things to address these, more involved at the scientific end of identifying them. I think that, all sorts of engagement like this gets people involved. I think, for instance, so I'm at the University of California, Davis. University of California, Berkeley has a bigger international development practice group. Maybe others would speak about that more expertly than I would in terms of what's happening here. I mean, typically, attention to that issues from outside Pakistan has come from various development funders like, of course, USAID, Germans, Norwegians, Swedes. So I think some of that
academia, government, and civil society organizations, they have to work together. And states require enormous capability to have coordination mechanisms, information sharing, data usage, surveillance systems. So we need to have these kinds of coordinating mechanisms. In Pakistan now we have started taking some baby steps towards those institutional coordinations. Like now we have tried to make our Pakistan Standards and Quality Control Authority a more vibrant and coordinating mechanism at the federal level, and we have food authorities. Now we have Agriculture and Food Authority as well in Punjab, and I think other provinces will also start doing that. So I think at this point in time, this international collaboration, universities like yourself and University of California, Berkeley, I think there is a lot of potential to work together and build up momentum towards better food systems and those food systems which can ensure food safety in the region. Because Pakistan's actually exports get hurt when we cannot produce food, exportable surplus, which is aflatoxin free or which does not have high residual of pesticides and stuff. So it hurts our economy too. So,
Yeah, no, as you're talking, of course, we all tend to speak narrowly. I'm very involved with some of the plant scientists, but as I was listening to you talk, I'm like, oh, goodness, so-and-so will say to me, Nancy, you forgot this, or as I think so. There is something called the Agricultural Sustainability Institute at UC Davis that has been very active in international food sourcing that involves, much more food systems approach. And then another area of important activity within our college has been post-harvest handling of horticulture. So a lot like, again, aflatoxin, all that, and Davis has done a lot of work with that. There was something called the Horticulture Innovation Lab at UC Davis that was USAID funded until recently, that has really worked hard on post-harvest handling of horticultural products that addresses a lot of the kinds of things you were talking about. So I shouldn't say that we don't have involvement, but yes, the collaboration, both, as you say, institutionally across countries and then internally, academics, government, is, I didn't introduce myself too thoroughly, but my Ph.D. is organizational sociology, and it's precisely that sort of collaboration that's been the focus of my research for many, many years, is why partnerships will work, why they won't work, the transaction costs, to use the jargon of that kind of collaboration. We all sit in way too many meetings, and some days go, this is a waste of time, and another day say, hey, it's the cost of collaboration sometimes. So I appreciate you bringing that issue up.
Thank you very much for sparing time and talking to us and for this podcast. And we hope that we will continue this dialogue. We will have some webinars when you are back in the US, and we will try to organize some of your talks and other experts on these issues, and we will try to have these recordings and we will share it with the policymakers in Pakistan. Especially, we want to take it further with the decision makers, especially the legislative branch of the government, so that we can have aflatoxins. For example, aflatoxins require some kind of policy and also policy actions.
I think it's quite serious. Yeah.
So we need to people like yourself and experts in your university can actually help us build those kind of knowledge which can impact our policy making processes, and it shows that there is an urgency and we need to take steps. So thank you very much for being here in Pakistan and at CPDI as well, and we're looking forward to having more talk about it and collaboration with your university and your department. Thank you very much.